This podcast is brought to you by Flipper, a marketplace to buy and sell websites, stores, and digital real estate. Plot your own path. Become a boss by buying a small online business at Flipper. Simply visit flipper.com/techtalks for a free consultation and 50% off fees. That's FLIPPA, flipper.com/techtalks. If you do visit, let me know how you get on. But now, let's get the show started.
Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, there is so much doom and gloom on those 24-hour rolling news channels at the moment, not to mention our social media timelines and news feeds. So I've decided just to tune out of all of it and try and add a little bit of positivity back into the universe. Much needed, might I add, too. And I didn't have to look too far either, because I came across Domenic Perri, who has worked very closely with the founder of ABC Shark Tank, Dropbox, Tesla, Juniper, and so many more. But he's now a partner focused on platform at Vertex Ventures, which is a boutique fund that invests early and often the first in enterprising founders who make it possible for new applications and services to be born. There is so much value in this conversation for startup founders, so I hope you enjoy it as much as me. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to San Francisco so we can speak with Domenic Perri right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Hi, Neil. Thank you for having me. I'm Dom Perri. I'm a partner at Vertex Ventures US. We're a boutique VC firm based in Palo Alto and San Francisco. We invest in early stage founders focused on the B2B market. And prior to joining the venture capital world, I spent my entire career as an operator in roles that I would describe as company building roles, specifically corporate development and business development. And that's another way of saying M&A and strategic partnerships. And so I was very fortunate in my career to be able to do that at both small early stage startups as well as a few large public companies.
And a few of the things that I love doing on this podcast is, yes, finding out about your solution and how you're leveraging technology to solve real businesses, real problems for businesses, but also try and find out a little bit more about the guest and their story and what got them where they are today. And when I did a little bit of research before you came on today, I learned that your tech journey began during your time working at BRAK Systems, where you were working closely with the founder of ABC's Shark Tank. So I've got to start by going there. I mean, can you tell me a little bit more about that journey?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking, Neil. That brings back a lot of memories. So this was long before the TV show Shark Tank ever existed. Yeah. And it was shortly after I graduated college. I was working for a large bank in Toronto, Canada at the time. And I was introduced to Robert Herjavec. And, Robert was a young entrepreneur. And when I met him, I just knew pretty quickly that I needed to be part of whatever it was that he was doing. He had at that time started a small systems integration and consulting company, and it was sort of focused on computer networking. But this was a pretty exciting time in the tech industry because we were in the middle of the dot-com bubble, and Robert is really good at seeing where the market is going. And as a lot of large enterprise companies were just starting to connect their local area network to the internet, the vast majority of them, had only deployed a network router, and they didn't have any perimeter security. And that was like a huge light bulb moment for us. And that's when we pivoted the company to focus 100% on network security, and we became one of the largest security companies in Canada in just a few short years. And this was all before security and cybersecurity ever were really a thing. And, working alongside Robert was a lot of fun. He is full of energy. He has incredible drive and focus. And, he's also really good at motivating people. And you probably see that, on TV. I don't watch the show much because, I don't have a lot of time, but the Robert you see today is the same person I worked with, and he was a great mentor for me, and he put a lot of trust in me, and he took me with him on all these huge customer meetings, and we traveled a lot together. So I think looking back, getting that level of exposure to both customers and technology that early in my career was truly invaluable. So Robert is hands down one of the best sales leaders I've ever met, and he's just really terrific with customers, and we still stay in touch today.
And I think most people would be happy with just having that in their career. But am I right in saying that you also enjoyed time at Dropbox, Juniper, and Tesla? Can you tell me a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, sure. All of those were, I think, pretty formative experiences for me. I really enjoyed doing corp dev and biz dev work, and prior to joining Vertex. So happy to quickly touch on all three. So for context, when I had joined the corp dev team at Juniper Networks, we had just made a massive acquisition. It was a $4 billion deal acquiring NetScreen technology. It was a leading cybersecurity company at that time, and so that was a really big change for the company. And we went on to make 10 more acquisitions over a 10-year period, and dozens of strategic partnerships after that. So it was a really great time to be in a deal-making biz dev role, and many of the partnerships that we built drove significant revenue for the company, and really helped make the products more competitive as well, because we embedded a lot of third-party partner products into our own. And so the company grew to over 10,000 people during that time. I built a lot of great relationships and friendships there, and I learned a lot about network infrastructure and security and cloud. And Juniper makes great products, and they have a lot of really smart people there. So it got to a point where I wanted to do something new, and eventually joined Tesla. I was also part of the small M&A team there, and to sort of give you context, they had just completed a couple of acquisitions. They had bought Solar City, and they bought an engineering company in Germany. So the company was going through a lot of difficult change at that time. And so I remember my first week on the job, I was asked to fly to Germany and help lead the integration of 700 plus engineers out there, and really intended to help accelerate the Model 3 production. And so what I noticed was, culturally, it was really night and day. I had to quickly learn a lot about European labor laws and how things are done differently out there, and at a very different pace. It was a really good experience for me to sort of bring the way of doing things in Silicon Valley and bringing it to Germany. And so it was a short period in my career, but we did do a lot in a short period of time, and it was fun for me to do something different. And then with Dropbox, this was 2017. An opportunity came up with Dropbox. They had hit a point where they needed to drive more growth of their Teams product by essentially selling more to enterprise businesses. And the company was also planning to go public at that time, probably in the next 6 to 12 months. So it was a really interesting time to come in, and it was pretty exciting. The team I was a part of was responsible for creating an ecosystem of product and go-to-market partnerships. And this was really core to demonstrating to enterprise customers how Dropbox can be used to create a better way of working across a number of different vertical use cases. And partnerships played a really key role in the overall Dropbox story. I remember during the IPO roadshow and investor pitches, the partner ecosystem that we helped create was really front and center to the overall Dropbox narrative. So it was pretty cool to be part of that.
And of course, that path led you to becoming now, of course, you're a partner focused on platform at Vertex Ventures, which is my understanding is it's a boutique fund that invests early and often first in enterprising founders who make it possible for new applications and services to be born, which sounds incredibly exciting. But can you tell me what brought you there and a bit about your work and what you enjoy most about your time there?
Sure. So moving to venture capital, was something I wanted to do for a while. And so when I first met my partners, Jonathan Heiliger and Sikri and Sandeep Badra, it was clear that this was a really tremendous opportunity to work alongside a phenomenal team of experienced enterprise investors. And I'd watched the VC landscape change over time and become a lot more competitive, a lot more capital out there. And, I think founders also now more than ever, need a lot more support. So this is exactly why I joined and why we created the Vertex platform. And it's really all about accelerating the success of our portfolio companies. And you need to do that through, a unique and differentiated way, and the way we do that is really through our, collective decades of experience and our deep industry relationships. So, having been in the trenches, so to speak, for, a long time, I think, collectively we've all got, decades of, that been there, done that experience that can really help our young founders. And, thinking about platform, I really look at, two sort of core areas. One is around the founders themselves, and then the other is around the network that we've built of people and relationships. And, on the founder side, I really think about it as really unique opportunities to do some coaching and helping them. A lot of that is really around the people side of things. And, I think about, recruiting strategy, retainment, career development, coaching them through, best practices. And, I think the better you get to know each other, the more you'll know how to help them. It's really all about building, business development and partnerships. There's a lot that can be done from accelerating their time to market, boosting their brand awareness by helping them create strategic partnerships. There's a lot of, customer introductions that can be made, whether it's, friendly design partners or Global 2000 customers. On the corp dev side or M&A side, this is an opportunity where, you can sort of coach them on how to build relationships with, some of the top acquirers out there and also make some really key introductions. And, on the, financial sponsor side, I think that's another, huge area for, access to capital, working with, corporate venture, growth capital, even building relationships with like equity analysts, for example. So, really it's a very people-oriented business at the end of the day. And for me, I'm really, passionate about that and focused on, driving the right outcomes for our founders.
For any startup founders out there listening to this podcast that could be located anywhere in the world looking for a bit of value and a little bit of tips from you, what are the biggest mistakes that you see startup founders making?
So there's, certainly a long list and we're all human and we all make mistakes. But, when I'm asked that question, I tend to, look at my advice comes from, a place of relationship building. And because of all my prior corp dev experience, I often talk about how founders sort of miss out on opportunities to develop relationships with corp dev teams. And I think there's a few reasons for this, whether they think, like the stars aren't aligned or, the timing isn't great. They don't want to come off as like weak signaling and things like that, or they're just not ready for M&A. And all of those are perfectly valid to sort of be aware of. But the advice I typically give to founders is just because you're not ready to, quote unquote, sell your company, it doesn't mean you shouldn't invest at least a small amount of time in building good relationships with corp dev teams now. There's a host of, benefits and advantages for the founder and their company down the road that might not be obvious today. And I can give you an example. I was recently talking to a good friend of mine who he's the head of corp dev at a large public company, and they recently made an acquisition. And when I asked him, hey, so tell me about that company, like why was that company so interesting to you versus some of the others? And he gave me a very clear answer. He said, it wasn't too long ago that we met the founder, built a relationship with them, got to meet the rest of the team, and the relationship sort of blossomed from there. And they were able to learn a lot about the team, the company, the market. That helped really shape their view on things. And so when he was, building the case for an acquisition, obviously you can guess who was in sort of the driver's seat to sort of be chosen for that target. So just good example of why it's important to plant those seeds early.
I've had countless emails from listeners over the last few weeks talking about their fears and concerns around job security, while also seeing their interest rates on their savings drop considerably. And as a result, many are beginning to look at how they can invest in their future in an uncertain time. Could digital assets be the answer? Now, you might remember that I spoke to Blake Hutchinson, CEO at Flipper, on episode 1194 about how to buy digital assets and websites. In a nutshell, Flipper is a marketplace that you can buy and sell websites, stores, and digital real estate that are just ready to go. So if you do have dreams of running your own successful online business, or perhaps you're looking to exit your existing online business, my friends at Flipper can help you buy and sell. So if you're interested and want to find out more, please visit flipper.com/techtalks. That's FLIPPA.com/techtalks for a free consultation and also 50% off all fees. But now, back to the interview. What should they be doing to get on your radar and obtain funding? And I appreciate that is such a huge question and probably another question that you get asked all the time. But is there anything that they could be doing a little bit better or to actually get on your radar?
Yeah. So in general, I mean, we love meeting interesting people with interesting ideas. It's never too soon to start a conversation with us and start building a relationship with Vertex US. We look for founders that have big ideas that want to build great companies. And to give you a few examples of where our current investment focus is right now, it's 4, maybe 5 things. The first is productivity in the next decade and what that looks like, especially now in this very remote first world. Another is around security, and that includes data security, privacy, governance is such a huge area and one that obviously I started my career in. Another big area is B2B fintech, and the other is real estate and construction tech. And I'd say beyond that, we're also really interested in sort of exploring tools for the modern site reliability engineer. So we have over 25 companies in the portfolio today. Half of them have received follow-on financing, including we've had 6 exits in just the last 6 years. So we're very intentional about only making a limited number of investments per year. And, we're seasoned entrepreneurs and operators with a strong desire to use our hard-earned lessons and professional experience to help mentor founders. And we're often looking at companies that might be a year or more away from going to market. And so we've developed a very founder-first investment approach, whether it's day 1 of the journey or year 10. Founders need expertise, mentorship, and long-term support to create a successful company.
And you mentioned a few moments ago that it is a remote first world now. So I'm curious, what changes are you seeing across the tech landscape right now? And how can founders better adapt to these new surroundings? Because it feels like every business, no matter what size, is having to adapt, evolve, and pivot to a certain degree. But what are you seeing?
Yeah, the pandemic has impacted every company in different ways. When I think about past crises, I always remember how leaders responded to that. Did they step up effectively and really lead through the crisis, or did they make things even more challenging for their company? And so we've been advising our portfolio companies through this uncertain time. And a couple of examples come to mind of how we're coaching our founders. I think one is it's just really important to help them, when this first started, helping them really get in the right mindset to prepare for what was a really uncertain future for all of us. And, and that could last, several quarters, if not more. Another area is really, communicating early and often with employees and customers. People want to know what's going on. They need to hear from you. Cash, of course, capital, conserving cash, being capital efficient is super important. Customers are likely going to postpone deployment of new software and services that you're selling, but you can't stop paying your employees. So you got to really be smart about that. Investing in relationships with existing customers and business partners. I always say they'll always remember how you treated them in tough times. Culture is also a big thing. I think preserving your culture through tough times is especially with everyone being remote. It's if that means doing more Zoom happy hours, then so be it. You should go for it. Whatever your culture was before, you should really continue to do that more often and really amplify that. And I think one other one is that I think is really important is just keeping spirits up and focusing on the positive. In tough times, employees are often going to look at the CEO for a source of inspiration. So it's a huge opportunity for them to really step up and keep motivating people and inspire them.
And I've got to ask, because you've had a fantastic tech career, you've had a great mentor and worked at some of the biggest tech companies in the world. But what would you say the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your career in technology have been?
Many. I tend to think back on my career journey and reflect on the importance of trusting your instincts, even if it feels a bit scary or uncertain. I remember when I left my family and friends and moved to New York City. This was early 2000 and just months before the dot-com bubble burst, and then of course shortly thereafter 9/11 happened. And I lived really close to the World Trade Center. It was I think something like 500 feet. I was in Battery Park City. It was a really difficult time for everyone, and everyone I knew, my family, friends, everyone was urging me to leave New York, come back home, and I just I was really determined to forge ahead, and I had to do what I needed to do. I was really resourceful during a really unprecedented moment in our history, and so I never quit. I think that experience really taught me a lot, and as I often say to people, you should sort of expect the unexpected. And then of course, here we are, in 2020, and we're certainly witnessing that again. So yeah, that was a pretty formative time for me.
One of the things that I find so refreshing talking to you today is that although you're working in the tech industry, I get the impression that you attribute much of your success down to meaningful, authentic, or long-lasting relationships. Is that a fair point? And if it is, what advice would you offer to listeners at the beginning of their career in technology?
Yes, definitely. It's very much who I am. I've always believed the building relationships, and it is a journey. The journey of building authentic relationships is really the most important fundamental thing you can do in your career. I constantly cross paths with people I've worked with many years ago, and my advice to people listening is really to build a strong network and put yourself within proximity of those you can learn from and who are really going to nourish your growth if you want to accelerate your career path or be it grow your business. So came across a few videos not too long ago, and I really like the quote from Esther Perel. I put it on my LinkedIn. She says that the quality of relationships determines the quality of our lives, and I think that's really true. I really like that quote.
I think that's a beautiful moment to end on. It's fantastic. So before I do let you go, though, could you remind everyone listening of where they can find out more information about Vertex Ventures, and equally contact your team if they've got any questions after listening to our conversation today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Neil. We would love to hear from your listeners. You can visit us at vertexventures.com or get in touch with us via email at hello@vertexventures.com. And I'm also on Twitter at Dom Perri.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes just so people can find you guys nice and easily. But I love the tech journey that you've been on, but more than anything, because as someone that says at the end of every episode of this podcast that technology works best when it brings people together, someone like you that's had such a rich career in tech but put human relationships at the heart of it, I think that sends out such a strong message too. So a big thank you, Dom, for taking the time to come on and share that story with me today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Neil. And I love your book, by the way. Congratulations.
I just love that quote there. The quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. And I also love how after a long career in tech, Dom joined Vertex in 2019 to build a foundation of quality relationships and help those early stage founders accelerate their growth thoughtfully. In short, it's about people and relationship at the heart of everything that he's doing in the tech industry. And I think that is a story that we don't get to hear about enough. But as always, if you've got any similar stories out there or any comments, any thoughts, any experiences that you'd like to share, please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, just at Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But that's it. We're here again at the end of another episode, but I'll return again tomorrow bright and early. I've already got a guest lined up for you. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.